Hey there, lovely viewer. You like books? You like video games? Do you like reading books in video games? You like video games that are just interactive books? And do I have the game for you? Hogwarts Legacy, the game that is 50% cutscene and dialogue, 20% loading screen and traveling, 15% repetitive activities, and 15% combat. Unless you live in New Hampshire, strap in your seatbelt because we are reviewing Hogwarts Legacy and seeing the game that started it all. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting down below, as it really helps me out with making these videos. Thanks! Experience the wizarding world of Harry Potter as a diverse member of an 1890s fictionalized UK in the area of Hogwarts. Become embroiled in a story of racial hostility started by a single incident of unforgiven childhood trauma that I barely understand even though I have already finished the game. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Ranrok. Learn to use an ancient type of magic that is nowhere found in J.K. Rowling's books but acts as the only plot device upon which the entire story hangs. Fight a revolving series of 5 different types of enemies: humans, spiders, goblins, trolls, and inferi. No, not inferior, inferi, though they are inferior enemies. Oh, and wolves. They are so weak you can almost forget about them though. Characters. Obviously you are the protagonist. Play God and choose how you want to look, including skin tone, eye shape, and hairstyle. And if you have a widow's peak like me, well then, no immersion for you. Name yourself as the wizard you have always wanted to be and enjoy the game while being treated like a child being given the illusion of choice. Yeah, you can choose between 2 sets of dialogue, but either choice makes no difference anywhere outside of the initial response to your choice. The story ends the same, quests, with one exception, end the same, people like you the same.
I am glad you came to Hogwarts. It's already been my best year.
Etc. Not my personal favorite, but it's not my game. Now for the rest of the characters. There are a lot of characters, like well over 50. I'll just focus on which ones are the most important and leave the rest.
Precisely.
Professor Fig. Professor Fig is the overly curious companion who helps you through the opening and ending of the game. He acts as the information guide for the main story missions and is the only supportive authority figure at the school for you in the game. Ranrok. Ranrok is the main villain and the entire reason for the storyline. He is a goblin who is too small for his britches and too old to be doing this anymore. He was unfairly attacked when trying to help a human wizard for the first time, and the wizard beat him bloody, thus instilling a lifelong aversion to all human wizards. Well, aversion is kind of weak. He kills any humans who aren't useful to him on sight, to be more exact. Sebastian. Sebastian is a Slytherin wizard. Now for Harry Potter fans, that should tell you exactly where this is going. Yes, he does slightly, in a very small, almost unnoticeable way, become influenced by dark magic. I feel like that is self-evident by the fact that he is the only student to know the 3 curse spells and be not afraid to use them. He is adventurous and daring, willing to do anything, literally anything, even killing his own family, to feed his sister complex. Natty. Natty is a native-born African wizard who landed in the Gryffindor house and as such harbors a deep obsession with stopping an evil man way out of her league, relying on plot armor to get the job done. And that doesn't work so well.
I had it all under control.
Poppy. Poppy is the Harry Potter equivalent of a PETA activist mixed with horse girl memes. Short, seems to like animals more than people, and probably doesn't eat meat. She helps you stop poachers and free a dragon, among other things. Lodguk. Lodguk is the only friendly goblin in a game that tries to paint goblins as misunderstood and the natural enemies of wizards, which is ironic to say the least. Why is this ironic? Well, for all intents and purposes, it appears that the game doesn't try to argue against the idea that wizards really did take down and enslave all of goblin kind. All the goblins you meet, with a couple of exceptions, really do hate your guts.
Less human to worry about. Such arrogance.
Well, anyway, Lodguk tries to mediate between the goblins and the wizard, but instead finds himself on the wrong side of a gravestone. Charles Rookwood. One of the 4 keepers, doesn't really separate himself from the group in any meaningful way besides having an evil descendant. Percival Rackham.
Finally found our map chamber?
The leader of the 4 keepers who are in charge of ancient magic. Pretty chill dude for being dead for like 100 or more years. He, like the player, can use ancient magic and guides the player forward in the 4 trials guarding the secret of the keepers. Sans Bakar. My personal favorite character in the game. He is one of the 4 keepers and makes you remember him when he one-shots an evil witch like people ought to have been doing in this universe all along. Niamh Fitzgerald, the last of the 4 keepers, an old headmistress of Hogwarts. As far as characters go, I didn't really see anything that stood out about her. Isadora, the witch who enabled the entire story. She basically did everything the Four Keepers did not want her to do with ancient magic, such as suck away people's emotions, and so created the need for the four trials that is core to the gameplay. And then finally, for the memes, there is Professor Garlic.
Do come by for a chat sometime. I so enjoy checking in with my new students.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
Everyone's favorite professor to simp over. Now, I wouldn't have mentioned her, but people might have questioned if I really played the game and didn't talk about her. Let me tell you, none of the guys who played this game missed herbology class even one time. Hogwarts Legacy had a lot of characters, and I think in some aspects it had too many. At several points in the game, I was in the middle of a conversation and I couldn't remember who I was talking to. The characters I remembered the most were the ones I saw the most or whose personalities were unique enough to grab my attention, like Headmaster Black.
Fig, I have work for you. Come.
Headmaster, I'm with a student and my schedule
Your schedule will wait indefinitely, as will your student. I would think that after all the trouble you caused me with Osric, you'd be eager to make amends. My office, 5 minutes.
Who's an elitist pig, or Sebastian, who will do anything for his sister. But I forgot the names of characters like Natty, who didn't stick out to me. Poppy stuck out because of how insufferably bubbly she was and defensive of animals.
Hello, I'm Poppy Sweeting. What in Merlin's name are you doing? Her name is Persephone!
Story. The story revolves around two important things, ancient magic and goblin silver. Basically, this goblin named Ranrok was butthurt about an incident involving a racist wizard and a strong stick when he discovered the unique properties of goblin silver. What is goblin silver? Good question. The game never really explains it, but apparently it's regular silver, but made by goblins. I know, really inventive. Anyway, goblin silver is somehow able to contain and manipulate ancient magic, which is basically just really old creator level magic. Its limits, if it has any, are not explored, but I think it represents a great analogy for other scary technology that we have today, like nuclear power. Obviously dangerous, but just as helpful if used properly. So Ranrok finds out about Isadora, a witch, who has the ability to use ancient magic and died, but left behind journals detailing the usage of ancient magic from its repository, hence batteries. Ranrok then makes himself a handy-dandy goblin silver suit to use ancient magic and is on a quest to use evil ancient magic, hence the red color, in order to... well, I don't know exactly. Ranrok claims that the repositories belong to goblin kind, and that the wizard stole it from them, and thus his quest to reclaim it. As far as I know, there is no clear end game for Ranrok. All he wants is to get the repositories back. I assume, based on his backstory, that he would then use the magic to make the wizards submit to goblins, but it just never is explored. So that brings us to you, the protagonist, on the side of good, trying to stop Ranrok while convincing a bunch of old dead codgers of your sincerity and competency while Ranrok has free reign to tear up the countryside. You spend a good 80% of the main storyline trying to convince the Four Keepers that you can be trusted with the knowledge of the largest known store of ancient magic. And you do all of this while having the ability to already use ancient magic to massacre literally anything that stands in your way. This includes the right-hand man of Ranrok, who is Rookwood's descendant and a total loser. You go through 4 trials set up by the Four Keepers, and after each trial you get a bit more information in the form of magic VR cutscene recordings, i.e. pensive memories. After each drip-fed, bite-sized piece of absolutely unnecessary information, you eventually are allowed to get to the final repository, and in fine classic drama fashion, you get to it seconds before Ranrok does himself. Also in classic and unnecessary drama, instead of full-out assault on Ranrok before he does anything with the repository, you have a nice conversation before he predictably breaks and absorbs the ancient magic battery, essentially allowing the villain to prepare for the final fight. After this cliched plot point, you then go on to fight Dragon Ranrok because fighting Goblin Ranrok was too boring apparently. After a very underwhelming boss fight with little emotional payoff, you witness a quite frankly amazing post-fight cutscene where you almost single-handedly repair the entire infrastructure supporting the ancient castle of Hogwarts. 10 out of 10, would watch again. Anyways, after that, Professor Fig bites the figurative bullet, you go back to school, and the game lets you know you are done. Ta-da! Now obviously I very much oversimplified the story, however I believe the core aspects of the plot exist in some form in this explanation. The story itself is very convoluted and much in the fashion of how the Harry Potter books read. Many twists and turns, mystery, discovery, drama, etc. However, the main difference between the books and this story would be the scope and impact of the villain on the world at large. Voldemort seeks to be the most powerful wizard that is immortal so that he can despotically do whatever he wants and force people to obey. Ranrok, while I would assume wants something along those lines, never explicitly declares the absolute annihilation or rulership over the rest of the world. It just seems smaller scale and therefore less important. Combat. In Hogwarts Legacy, there are 24 spells which fall into one of two categories, combat and not used very often. Most of the spells are combat spells, and many of them are able to be used in puzzle solving or convenience. All of the combat spells in one way or another enable the tyrannical and sadistic part of your mind to come out of the torture chamber to play with your enemies. That is, they allow you to abuse and dehumanize the creatures you face. The combat was where this game shined. I wish there was more of it. You like ignoring the laws of physics and denying your enemies the dignity of dying painless deaths? You like being told that the unforgivable curses are bad but then having the game encourage their use? I do. The combat is smooth like butter and frees you up to try out any number of combinations of spells to eviscerate your target. All of the combat spells in this game would land anyone who used them on a war crime tribunal, since they either take away someone's freedom, objectify people, slice bodies in half, or otherwise torture people. And what is extra funny is how seriously people take the killing curse of Davra Kedavra, including the protagonist, when you have been ending the lives of people since the very first fight using less unseemly spells. At that point, using the killing curse is more of a mercy, since you don't have to suffer being frozen, lit on fire, sliced in half, or turned into a paraplegic. You get 4 spell sets, with 4 spells going into each set. You can switch sets mid-combat to get new spells available, but it seemed like a lot of work to me. After a lot of experimentation, I came up with what I consider to be the most powerful spell set without using unforgivable curses. It's Flipendo, Glacius, Expelliarmus, and Arresto Momentum. Those of you who have played the game should know that 3 of those 4 spells put curses on enemies. You might say that I might as well just use unforgivable curses, but I'm like World War II Japan. It's not a war crime if nobody finds out. So you curse a group of enemies, make sure to have the highest level curse damage upgrades on your gear, and watch as your basic cast combos do the damage of your most powerful ability without breaking a sweat. It made the game pretty simple, honestly. If you want to use what I had, here it is. So go into fights, pretend that stealth doesn't exist, and juggle cooldowns while dodging, shielding, and teaching your enemies to never stand near ledges. Enjoy stealing mini-bosses' thunder when you kill them 5 seconds after their overlong introduction. You also have available the use of ancient magic in the form of introducing your enemies to the very power of God itself, or just connecting a barrel to their face. Your choice, honestly. I prefer not using ancient magic, with the exception of boss fights, because it felt so underhanded. And this is coming from the guy who was cursing the souls of people left and right mid-fight. But what are you going to do against lightning come from the stratosphere or being forcibly turned into a chicken? It just makes the game so simple and easy. And it was already easy enough. I never died or lost a fight, and only used a grand total of like 20 health potions over the entire game, and you can carry 25 of them at a time. Mechanics. There are various activities outside of the main story and combat that you can take part in. There are Merlin trials, racing, animal raising, farming, and Where's Waldo. The only really useful ones to make the game more combat enjoyable is the animal raising, since animal components are used to upgrade clothing for special effects. Don't get me wrong, all of the various activities get rather repetitive, but at least one of them has some use. There is one aspect of this game I want to mention that really is tanking its score for me: the loading screens and the inhuman dialogue. Perhaps I'm spoiled by the God of War. Human dialogue in its natural state is jumbled, with lines coming one right after another with little to no pause and plenty of emotion. But in this game,
wearing armor, it had that dark glow like the dragon collar.
Goblin silver. Ranrok used it to control the dragon. But how? And why send trolls too?
After a while, it becomes noticeable and annoying. At some point, people are just going to start skipping conversations entirely because it's such a drag. Then there is the loading screens. If the loading screens don't irk you, then you must have the patience of a mountain, my friend. There were many instances when I was totally into the story, things were speeding up quickly, total heat of the moment, when BAM! 30-second loading screen hits you in the face. If you enjoy games that have to preload the entire map every time you enter, exit, or fast travel, then this is the game for you. And before you say, my hardware is the problem, I am running a very good CPU and a 3070 GPU. I would hope it wouldn't be this obvious. It shouldn't be this obvious. Fanservice. As a game that acts as a legacy to the world of Harry Potter, this game actually does justice to the series it comes from. If you have seen the movies or read the books, then you would have recognized the famous Dementor Lake, Sorting Hat, Train, Goblet of Fire, and talking paintings. It's a lot, and I was shocked over and over again by the attention to detail. Not once during my playthrough did I feel that the developers disrespected or misrepresented something from the original world of Harry Potter. Unlike other games I could point out, this game does a great job of making the fans of the Harry Potter universe happy and satisfied. You have the Broken Down Bridge, Hagrid's Place, and best of all, the Forbidden Woods. It would have been cool if they had added in Quidditch, but it was quote-unquote
Cancel.
which I take to mean that the developers had to stop working on it, but it may come back in some form, perhaps as a DLC in the future. When I played this game, I really did feel like I was finally able to experience the Hogwarts that Rowling writes about in her books, so props to the developers for that. Score. Overall, Hogwarts Legacy is like waking up from real life to find that one of your favorite fictional stories just moved from your imagination to just a few feet in front of your screen. That said, I did have some problems. Here's how I came to my score. 5 out of 10 story, 5 out of 10 dialogue, 10 out of 10 combat, 3 out of 10 loading, 10 out of 10 fan service, 3 out of 10 immersion, 5 out of 10 characters, for a final score of 5.8 out of 10, or 6 out of 10 to keep it simple. If you are someone who has no idea what Harry Potter is about or has no real love for it, then 6 out of 10 is your score. If you ever pick up the game, pick it up on sale. For Harry Potter fans, I give this game a score of 8 Billy Sticks out of 10 Gobbledygooks. I give it this score because of the lore, fan service, and nostalgia that will continually gut punch you into loving it, and frankly, the combat will give you a continuous dopamine rush every time you pull off a sweet 5v1 fight. If you somehow haven't picked the game up, I would recommend it. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe as it really helps me out. As well, comment below what you thought of my points and review. I would love to hear your feedback. See ya!